Unlike Donald Trump, who has Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan, Kamala Harris has an incredible team of surrogates who are supporting her. Lately, we've seen President Obama out on the campaign trail making the case for the VP. Today, Kamala Harris was sitting down with Liz Cheney to talk about the threat to democracy that Donald Trump is, but one specific surrogate has stood out from the rest, not only in their ability to make the case for Kamala Harris, but their ability to trigger Donald Trump, and that is billionaire Mark Cuban, who, like I said, has been doing a great job talking about the failures of the first Trump administration on the economy and how bad for business Donald Trump would be in a possible second term, but also talking about the opportunity economy Kamala Harris wants to build now. And that has been driving Donald Trump absolutely crazy. So much so that today he melted down on Truth Social because of a couple of the comments that Mark Cuban has been making about him, calling him out in a way that drives Donald Trump crazy because these guys used to kind of be friends. And so when Donald Trump feels like he's been stabbed in the back, oh man, can he not handle this? Obviously, a guy with a lot of grievances, and he's letting them all loose right now. And we are going to get into all of that because it was pretty humiliating for Donald Trump. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It really goes a long way, and it means the world to me. Now, like I said, there have been a lot of great call-outs by Mark Cuban that have led to Donald Trump to spiral, and we're going to check out this first one right here.
You know, one of the critiques, obviously, of former President Trump is around tariffs. And yet it's not clear that that unto itself is landing, if you will.
No, it's not.
I wonder why. I asked because, by the way, if you remember, even last week, President Trump was out there saying that, you know, he had killed deer from going to Mexico, which, you know, was just not even true. It was just
he
it was completely like factually untrue.
That's who he is.
No, and yet that does. The question is, why doesn't that land?
Because they're so used to it. You know, he's Pinocchio and his nose is so long it looks like a road. It doesn't matter. No one pays attention to what he actually says. What actually happens, Andrew, he says something and then Joe comes in and explains what he really means. He never says what he really means, and it's unfortunate with the tariffs. That's part of what I was doing in Phoenix.
You're talking about me again. You're out on the campaign trail. I'm not. I mean,
no, I know.
I have to be here because we book you and let you talk for a half hour without anyone, you know, opposed to you.
No,
so
Joe, come on,
oppose me.
Joe, oppose me all you want. I will hit you with facts every day.
I'm not out campaigning. I'm not a surrogate. I don't know who I'm voting for, Mark. So, you know.
Good. No, Joe, what? Joe, you know what? If you don't know who you're voting for, that's a great thing. I think that's beautiful.
There
I don't
you
know
go.
that.
Good. Thanks. I mean, Mark, we let you go on.
This is what gets Donald Trump the most upset. Cuban, like many of the other individuals who were speaking out against Donald Trump, Liz Cheney, of course, Mark Milley, are people who were close to Donald Trump, who observed him in the White House in the case of those former Trump officials who have not endorsed him or have come out against him. But Mark Cuban also observed Donald Trump in their time, both in business together, the relationship that they had. And so Mark Cuban knows Trump. And so he's calling out those personality flaws that are obvious and apparent to all of us, but are even more egregious when you observe them up close. And Donald Trump knows that they are true about him. He knows that he's a liar. He is so insecure about himself, and that is why he is lashing out. But Mark Cuban didn't only go after Donald Trump personally, but he went after his pet issue. Yes, the issue of tariffs. Donald Trump's plan to save the world with a concept that he doesn't understand. And so before we get into Trump's meltdown, I think we got to take a look at what Cuban had to say.
Just think about it from a retail perspective. We buy clothes, you know, we buy sneakers, we buy books, we buy backpacks, we buy all the sporting goods. Just think about this time next year for Christmas, for your own personal Christmas gifts. If all of a sudden, God help us, Donald Trump is elected and he puts 60% tariffs on everything from China. Now all those things cost more because that distributor, that retailer can't eat all that. Now you're having a second conversation about Christmas, aren't you? Honey, I don't know if we can get that. Now from a small business perspective, who suffers? The person who's selling, the person you buy at the bookstore, the clothing store down the street that you've gotten all your stuff from, you know, the sporting goods shop that gets you all the merch for your kids' stuff, right? Those are the people who suffer. So when Donald Trump talks about tariffs and he's thinking, oh, you're going to, you know, if we put this big tariff on, all these big companies are going to move their manufacturing from wherever to the United States.
Donald Trump, for some reason, lauds himself as the guy who saved Christmas somehow. I don't know what his reasoning is for that. So I love that Cuban makes Donald Trump out to be the Grinch, someone whose devastation to our economy, someone who would drive up prices so much so that he would be effectively stealing Christmas. And clearly Donald Trump does not like this comparison. And he's not a fan of Mark Cuban because he took to Truth Social with those tiny little fingers, as he always does, and posted this. Trump wrote, "Mark Cuban is a loser. Wouldn't take his phone calls anymore while at the White House, and he went rogue. A weak and pathetic bully. He's got nothing going. Really low club head speed. A total non-athlete." Could the projection from Donald Trump get any worse? He's saying that he's a bully, true of Trump, and that he's a bad golfer. We've seen the videos, certainly true of Trump. I don't think Mark Cuban has to award himself club championships at the golf courses that he owns to make himself feel good about his golf game. So clearly just angry projection from Donald Trump there. But what he didn't dispute is Mark Cuban being right, and of course Donald Trump being wrong about tariffs, because Donald Trump doesn't know how to. He has no substance to his economic argument, if we can even call it that. He is just angry. And he's not just angry that Mark Cuban went after him on the economy, where he was a failure, not only went after him for his personality, but one of his biggest failures in the presidency. That was January 6th. Let's take a look.
And the question is, here we are talking about policy, right? We're having real policy
Right, the underpinning is the guy
But
didn't
my,
live
no,
up
but
to
my
his oath.
question is how much we should actually, how much do you think as CEOs who are watching this program, or just a voter, is supposed to think about these other issues?
Look,
I think that Joe would say that January 6th is not
It's
something...
been litigated. People know it happened. It's been litigated.
Yeah, but how
the
could you-
48% that back him are...
When, I mean, the guy
Because-
literally told his vice president, he called him,
No.
you know what he called him, right? He literally tried to get him to overturn an election. That should disqualify him. It just, for whatever reason, people don't want it.
In the heat of that moment, I still, at that point, I think he really did believe that it had been stolen. At that point, I don't know if he believes it anymore.
Look, I remember going to.
But
I went
you
to
know
his
that in the
debate
past,
2016.
there have been Democrats that have voted not to certify.
Yeah, that's fine.
Many
right?
times.
That's fine. But
Previous elections.
none of them called their vice president a pussy and said, "Don't certify the election." Right? None of them have.
Right.
He's the only one to do that.
As I said, you got Stormy Daniels. There's a lot of things.
I don't care about his character, right? I don't care about what he does in his personal life. I could care less. But you have to live up to your oath of office as President of the United States. You cannot trust that Donald Trump would do that. You talk about history. He has ripped off more hardworking Americans than probably anybody else. Michael, down here, down the street, right, when Michael Cohen said he was instructed to short pay and that was a good thing, when, at the end of the day, when Donald Trump stood up there talking about what was going on and everything, he didn't say, no, that's not true.
What type of person do you have to be? What type of Trump stooge who lacks any backbone to try to defend January 6th? Oh, it was what it was. It's been disputed. Yeah, as an attack on our democracy. And trying to act like it was anything less just shows how out of touch and I guess a lack of care that you have for America in general, for your fellow man. Donald Trump's attack on our country on January 6th wasn't just going after Mike Pence, it wasn't just going after Democrats, it was going after millions of votes cast by people who wanted Joe Biden to be their president. He was trying to strip people's voices away. That's what Donald Trump always wants to do. It's why he's talking about wanting to censor CBS. What a ridiculous thing to say. And obviously, Mark Cuban found it pretty ridiculous because he continued to spar with that CNBC host right here.
So here's the difference, another difference between Kamala and Donald, right? Donald says something and everybody else tries to explain what he really meant, right? He didn't really mean all these things. This is what he's suggesting, right? He's just hyperbole. Listen to what Kamala Harris says. What she says is what she's going to do.
But then you're not going to go back and look at Trump's 4 years compared to the last 4 years that we've had.
But what about the years before that?
We know what he did, and we know there were no hot spots around the world.
Then you're not talking about inheriting the Obama economy and what he did there. But look, Obama was the deporter-in-chief. He deported more people. What is specifically, Joe, my turn.
Yeah.
What specifically is he going to do for deportation? Is he going to get the National Guard?
I don't know how he's.
You don't think that's important?
No.
Independent economists, business leaders from left to right, all agree on something very simple. Donald Trump, bad for business. It could not be clearer that one, he is unstable, two, wants to be unchecked, and three, is just uneducated. He can talk about Wharton all he wants. I don't care that Donald Trump went to a fancy college. He didn't get into it himself. He had someone take his SATs for him. This is a person who doesn't know what he's talking about. He has found his but one buzzword. He holds on to it for dear life because he knows that he is floating in a sea of his own crazed thoughts, a Hannibal Lecter and windmills, and just needs one coherent thing to try to say. And so he keeps spouting it out. And that's why he's so mad when people attack his lack of knowledge on it, as we can see right here.
It's the most beautiful word there is. Tariff. And these stupid people, stupid politicians, they don't like, look, they're either dumb or they're corrupt. Anybody that opposes tariffs for a country where you're going to, because China's been doing that for years. We don't want you.
Tariffs and drill, baby, drill, like I said, are these life jackets for Donald Trump. When he knows that he is in a speech and he can't communicate a clear thought, he can't speak on substance because he doesn't understand it. He loves these words so much, he loves these phrases that he always continues to go back to because he doesn't understand the issues and he wants to pretend like he does. And all he's going to do is just yell these words even louder until Election Day because he doesn't understand and he's out of control. And we have to continue to call that out, and we're gonna. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video, and if you're stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.